Hello everyone, I'm just balancing my camera. Hi everyone, it's Kelly here. If you don't know me yet, where have you been? Because you must be part of the group. I'm Kelly from spiritualawakeningsigns.com, and I help people like you who are going through spiritual awakening to move through the journey as easily as possible, and definitely with as many less signs and symptoms as we can get. We want to make that process as smooth and as gentle as it can be. So this video, I apologise in advance, it's a little bit impromptu. So I had the vibe earlier and I felt that I wanted to talk to all you guys and really be as available as I can be for you when you're having challenges in your awakening and there's things that you want to ask that you maybe don't know where else to go. So I want you to know that it's absolutely okay for you to ask that here, and I'm here for you. And I'm hoping to do maybe a little video every week and trying to connect with you guys more. And help you with these things. Okay, so first off, I think it would be good to do just a kind of brief overview of my awakening and explain a little bit about what it was that I went through that's kind of brought me to where I am today, helping people like yourself. So my awakening really began when my family's business went bust. I mean, went completely and utterly bust, which was a real challenge at the time because myself, my mum and my dad were all employed in it. We all ran that, and we had done. That was the only job I'd ever had, apart from my therapy, which I did on the sidelines, all my healing and intuitive work, which wasn't half as intuitive back then. And I kind of felt that I was stuck in a job that I really didn't want to do, and for years I had wanted to get out and I couldn't find a way. Felt obligated with my family, didn't want to leave them struggling. You've probably got a similar story yourself. And what happened was we closed the doors and the business was completely finished. And it was a few months after that I started to experience some changes. And that's quite often the case for us. So we go through something that starts to break down the ordinary life. It's like a call to adventure, a call to action. And it starts to break the old ways down. And it definitely did break a lot of old ways down. And as a result, suddenly I became extremely sensitive. So this was a newer thing for me. I'd always been sensitive, but it was a different level of sensitivity that I couldn't really handle. I didn't know how to handle it. And I found that, you know, other people could deal with things and kind of brush it off, and I just couldn't. The emotions were so powerful and so overwhelming, and it took a lot of work, doing some of the healing work that I do, to kind of eradicate it and clear it and keep myself on the straight and narrow. And then a few months later, I began having what I can only really describe as spiritual visions. And this was something really new to me because I had tried to do psychic work for a long, long time and felt very frustrated and very blocked and felt like I just wasn't really getting anything. You know, I would work with people and coaches and they would say, okay, what are you getting? You know, and I'd be like, nothing. They'd be like, no, but you're getting something. What are you getting? And I'd be like, my mind has drawn a blank. There's nothing there. And at that time, there really was nothing there. So to go from that to these incredible spiritual visions was, it was amazing, and it was enlightening, and it was exciting, but it was also a little bit frightening because you're opening up an area of space that you don't really understand yourself in, you know, in that particular space yet. And it was confusing, and I doubted a lot of it, even though it was really powerful and really emotional, connecting with guides and other parts of myself. There was a lot of doubt there. And I gave my guides a really hard time, kind of saying, okay, prove it. All the time, prove it. Which sometimes they didn't pander to. Maybe that's for the best. So things progressed from there, and then my sensitivity was really heightened, and then I began unearthing all these past lives. So having been a healer for so many years, I was kind of used to opening up past lives. I'd opened up a few, a few before, and I'd dealt with bits and bobs. But now it was getting to the point where my past life stuff was coming up so fast and so intensely that I actually got to the point I didn't want to know anymore. I can remember crying to my mum. I went through a 2-week spell where it was just like it was in my dreams and it was intruding in the day. It was coming up, 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 up all the time. All these tragedies, all these heartaches. And I remember crying to my mum and saying, I don't want to know anymore. And she was saying, but you know, you'll come through it, you'll clear it. And I was like, no, really, it's just too much heartache. I don't want to know. But fortunately, because I had those kind of healing skills, I was able to keep going and keep clearing that. And that was really, really useful. Hold on, I'm going to make sure that I'm swiping here so that I can see who's actually, just in case anyone's in and wants to say hello. So I went through a really hard time of all that spiritual stuff where it became quite confusing and I didn't really know how to make sense of it, and I certainly wasn't going to tell anybody about it because I was sure that they were going to say, you're crazy, I don't want anything to do with you anymore, or we're going to lock you up. And that became more frightened, and it kind of progressed from there. That went on for about 4 years until it got really more and more out of hand. So whenever we had a full moon or an astrological event, I was so overwhelmed that even in the silence I felt like I was sitting in the midst of chaos. I could cry. I was so unbelievably sensitive, and I changed a lot about my life, pulled away from a lot of old friends, old things that I used to do. Used to be quite a party girl in my day and couldn't face alcohol, couldn't face being in crowded places because I would pick up everybody's stuff and I would pick up all their pain, and I was just so incredibly empathic that it felt that there was no boundary. It was like, you know, people's stuff was just right in, and then I was stuck with it, and aware of a lot of senses of entities, waywards, some negative stuff, but just aware of things around me all the time, and it was really incredibly overwhelming. And it built up to a crisis point. So not everyone's awakening necessarily goes to this extreme point, which is why I teach the things I do, which I'll be sharing a little bit more shortly. But mine hit an absolute crisis point where it's kind of like it verges on psychosis. It's like, they call it mystical madness. So it's where the energy becomes so intense, the emotions are coming up so powerfully, and all this past life stuff is coming up so intensely while you're picking up, you know, what spirit's in the room, who's on higher realms, who you're talking to, what your guides are saying, what vibe the house has, what vibe the land has. You're picking up everything. It's just sheer overwhelm. And my wee brain just kind of cracked down the middle and went, we're not doing this anymore. We've had enough. And I went through a really deep depression. So that's more like spiritual emergence we're talking about. That's kind of where you have a breakdown to have this real breakthrough. But it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And when I went through this breakdown, my intuition, which I had relied on for 4 years, I was always consulting with my guides. I was always asking for guidance. I was always, even though I was scared, feeling held by that energy. And when I hit this depression, it was gone. I mean, gone. For 4 years I'd been able to connect, to feel them, to know they were there. I was doing automatic writing, I was meditating all the time, and just all of a sudden there was no emotional crutch, there was no support, and by God, I really felt that I was completely on my own. In fact, I was really cursing them at the time. I was really bitter. It's all kind of laughable now. I can laugh about it because I'm past all the trauma. It doesn't feel traumatic at all, and that'll happen for you too. But at the time, it was absolutely soul destroying. It was awful. And that was how I learned that grounding was the most important thing, because when I had that crash back down to earth, it was the crash that kind of taught me that when you're not grounded, that's when your energies start to spiral out of control. That's where I tripped into spiritual emergence unintentionally and made the process so much worse. I mean, my body was breaking down, I had fatigue all the time, I was in terrible pain, because the DNA upgrades and the changes that it was bringing, I was kind of letting them through my body much faster than my body, my mind, or myself were prepared to deal with. And that's why I always say gently with these things. Please move gently, because it's already such an incredible, powerful movement and transformation. So always be gentle with yourself. So while that all sounds really dark and really awful, actually isn't as awful as it sounds, because when I came out the other end of that, I got my intuition back, and my intuition was clearer and more profound than it had ever been. Even now, sometimes I'm astonished at the things that I'm able to pick up on in sessions and working with people, and even on videos like this. So it's definitely changed that. It's become so much more clear. And I'm clearer in myself, so I don't get triggered by things in the same respect. Doesn't mean I never get anything, because this is still human life. But I don't get triggered by things so intensely. And it blasted me right onto my life purpose. I went from really spiraling out of control, being really depressed, wondering if there was even a path at all, to all of a sudden being inspired with all this information and recognising that exactly what I had been through was the key to be able to help other people move through that without going to the depths that I did. So it was definitely a valuable experience, but I don't want you to go through that because it's not necessary, okay? So I learned the hard way. I did the crash course, and I would rather give you the guidance from the crash course than you have to go through that really extreme level, because it's not necessary for you to move through your awakening. So I hope that explains a little bit about me. If you've got any questions, pop them up. I'm actually going to, give me just a second, I'm going to click on this on my laptop because sometimes the comments don't actually come up on my phone. Let me have a little look. Sorry for this, guys, I just want to make sure I can see anything that you're popping up. And please know that anything you want to ask, I'm more than happy to help. If you have any comments, please just ask. I'm going to go through a little bit more about some of the signs and symptoms that you'll get, and we'll see what we can get. Okay, so any questions you have, just feel free to pop them up and I'll answer what I can. So talking about the most common signs and symptoms of awakening can be difficult. And I'm sure that if you're here now and you're watching this video, if you're in the group, even if you've just been to the website, you've probably looked absolutely everywhere and scoured the internet for answers. And that's extremely challenging because you won't always find the answers that you're looking for. Usually what you'll find is what I found, which was a list of 50 signs and symptoms that wasn't entirely relevant. And also made it a little bit confusing, because then when you look down that list and you see that there's maybe something you're experiencing that doesn't fit into that list or that little box, you start questioning. And I did that too. There was a lot of things that I was experiencing that I felt was really mad and really crazy, and my conscious mind couldn't understand it. And when it wasn't on that list, I figured that I must be mad. I must be crazy. And that was a real worry for me, as it is for a lot of us going through spiritual awakening. There's always that fearful concern in the back of your mind that says, what if it isn't? What if it isn't awakening? What if, what if there's a little something missing and I'm just, not all there anymore, or something's happened? But it's important for you to know that when you look at any list of signs and symptoms, it's all someone else's perception. Even the list I'm about to give you now is my perception of what I feel happened for me. But what I've tried to do is make it as easy to understand as possible. And you'll find through the work that I'm doing in the group and on the site, and even in the writing that I do, I always try to make everything as structured and step by step and down to earth as possible, because you need that energy when you're in that space to kind of almost to be able to anchor onto. So I'll be your anchor. I'm happy to do that, and I can hold this space for you, absolutely. But make sure that you're following something step by step that's really physical, because sometimes what we get is a lot of channeled teachings and a lot of kind of higher perspective guidance, which is great and it can be really comforting. But sometimes it doesn't quite give us the steps we need to actually physically move out of the space that we're in and into somewhere that's easier and more manageable. And I want that for you. I don't want you to be struggling with awakening. I don't want you to be having signs and symptoms that are frightening you, or that are completely out of control, or that overwhelming you and invading your personal life. I want you to be able to live and awaken, and kind of for those things to blend together. So let's have a talk about the 3 main signs and symptoms that you'll get as part of spiritual awakening. And no one gets out of these ones, right? So these are ones that you should be able to relate to. So the first one is that your emotions are heightened. Okay, your emotions are heightened as part of your awakening experience. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that we are healing lifetimes worth of pain. So this is the time where you've decided as a soul that you've come here, you want to clear your stuff, you want to shift into that 5D reality that everyone's talking about, ascend and move on. In order to do that, you need to clear all the past pain. Okay, so all the past pain from all those lifetimes where you were devastated, heartbroken, killed, chased, persecuted. We've all got it, because we've probably all been healers and things before. All this stuff needs to come up for healing, because they're the blocks for you to being in that space. Like I was talking about my intuition getting better. All these things are the blocks between you and that pure, clear energy, that divine connection that gives you that helping hand in life, and that is your birthright. It is your birthright to be able to connect to that energy and to get information and guidance as part of your life. It's natural. That's the natural state. So please know that that is a natural thing that's supposed to be happening, and it is it's meant for you to have that. But you've got to clear some stuff first. And what happens is your energies become opened. They open up, so all your chakras open up. And as the chakras open up, basically what that does is allows all the past pain to start rising to the surface. So as the energy is blasted up the centre, it hits against blocks. So my issue was I had heart pain all the time. Burning, aching, searing. It was just the most awful, it was a physical pain. And it was because the energy was coming up to my heart. And that's where I had issues, where I had pains, where I had heartaches. And devastation and trust issues and you name it, I've had it. So that's where it was all hitting off of, and that's why you get, you know, sensations in those areas. Not to say everyone feels them, so that's okay if you're not, but that's what's happening. So it hits against all these things, and when it hits against all these things, it brings them to our conscious awareness. So that's why you start having issues like maybe you feel anxious about the fact that you haven't found your life path yet, or you start to feel shameful and embarrassed about the fact that, you know, you don't have enough money, or you're still living at home, or you're, you know, not where you think you should be in your life for whatever stage that is. These things are all kind of hanging over us, and they're coming up again. So whether you're remembering literal past lives or whether you're just experiencing emotional themes, these are the things that are coming up to be healed, to clear the space so that you can really ascend and so that you can experience a different reality without all that kind of past life pain distorting it and changing the experience that you're having. Does that make sense? So this emotional sensitivity is there on purpose, because if it wasn't there, you'd still be able to run away from all these pains, probably that you've run away from for lifetimes. So it's really important that that sensitivity is there, so that when these things come up from the chakras, you can actually have a sense of like, oh, I can see what that is, and I can kind of have a look at it, and I can feel that, and I can really sense it and go into it. And when you realise it, you release it, and that's another block released. I'm not saying that it's easy, because it takes a lot of work to clear all these past lives, but it can be done if you just keep that structure and you hold the focus of knowing that your emotions are heightened on purpose. Okay? Some of these things can go the other way and be too intense, but I'll come back to a little note on that when we're finished. The second sign or symptom is your sensitivity is heightened. So with sensitivity, yes, we're talking physical sensitivity, yes, we're talking emotional sensitivity, but we're also talking about empathy. You know, that connection that you have where you're able to walk into a room and feel a vibe, or just know that something's off, or connect with someone and just know that something's not right. Or maybe you speak to someone and you pick up their stuff, you pick up their aches, their pains, their emotional issues. I know that happened to me a lot, and it was a deep source of distress, because it got so intense that at one point I didn't actually want to leave my bedroom. I didn't want to go anywhere, I didn't want to connect with people, because I knew that when I did, I would pick up their stuff. And that was really traumatizing for me, because as a sensitive person, you're feeling your emotions so deeply, and it's really hard to get out of it once you're picking up on someone else's stuff. So we definitely don't want that. And it's not always that much fun. But like I said before, the sensitivity is heightened for a purpose. And that purpose is so that you will not only feel all the things that come up, but also that you can be triggered by other people's stuff. Okay? So a lot of people think that you're picking up someone else's stuff and you're just stuck with it. That's not always the case. What I found as I began to heal more and more and more and clear all these things is actually that my pain was resonating with someone else's. So I was picking up on someone else's stuff, and when I would clear my own stuff, their thing that I had picked up would be gone. Okay, so it's like the universe is using it reflectively to show you that you're picking up on that person's pain, because it's like a mirror and it exists inside of you somewhere. So when you're picking up other people's stuff, I want you to really carefully identify what it is that you're feeling, experiencing, picking up on, because somewhere in you that exists, and it's probably past life and you're not even aware of it. But you know, this happened to me with I say this in the free course, but this happened to me with a lady when I was still doing hairdressing, and a lady came in and she was coughing, and she said, I've got pleurisy. Now, I don't know if you know what pleurisy is. It's a really old time kind of condition that really has been almost eradicated now. It was really serious. People used to die all the time from pleurisy. And it's a condition in the lungs, and it becomes extremely painful because you're just coughing, coughing, coughing. You strain all your chest. It's a really terrible affliction of the lungs. And when this lady had been in, immediately her chest pain hit me like a ton of bricks. So I'm trying to do her hair and act all, you know, so how's your day been? When I'm thinking, oh, I can't do this, I need to get away from her. As awful as it sounds. And what I realised later was that when I started to work on it, because it was there for days, and she was gone, and I was still dealing with this lung pain, but it actually resonated with me. It was something that was in there for me, and I had to work quite often on a past life I had where I had tuberculosis, which is similar, all in the lungs. And it's just similar things. So it was reflecting what was going on in me so that I could recognise it with my sensitivity and heal it with the awareness that I have of these new emotions. So it's all meant, okay? Even though it feels a bit cruel and it can feel extremely uncomfortable, it is meant. And like I said, don't worry, because I'm going to talk you through some things at the end that you can make this a little bit easier. Okay, third sign or symptom that everybody gets is that your psychic senses are extremely heightened, but not just heightened, vastly opened, okay? And that's because, like I said at the beginning, this energy is surging right up the centre, okay, through all the chakras, so that you have that divine, clear connection to source, and so that you're a pure channel for all of these things, energy or messages or guidance, whatever it is. And the problem with this is that sometimes other things that we're around stimulate this more. So if you're around a lot of spiritual things, like things that we enjoy, like crystals, like essential oils, like certain incense or sage, I couldn't manage to be around sage at all. While they're fun things, sometimes if you're in that really open spiritual space, it can kind of tip you over the edge into blasted open. And it's kind of like a public restroom. Anyone can come in, anyone can walk around, anyone can get in your space, and it's really uncomfortable because you're too open. So just have an awareness of that. If you're struggling with your empathy or your psychic ability, just come away from some of those spiritual things for a little while, just to let those energies close down to a more normal level, and you'll find that it does actually balance out a little bit. That's something that you need to watch out for, but you'll probably be experiencing some heightened moments as well. So while it can be difficult, you know, you might be connecting with guides, angels, feeling presences, picking up on messages, even little things like, you know, sometimes you see signs out and about. You might see a road sign or an advert, you might hear a song, and just the words in it just speak to you. Or someone, you're in a queue and someone in the queue says something, they're talking about something, and you're like, oh, that feels like it was meant for me. It's because your psychic senses are so open that you're picking up on things and you're starting to really experience a clearer connection, which is fantastic. But like I say, we want to keep that balanced so that you're not in the space where you're being kind of bombarded where you don't want it, because that's what happened to me. I was receiving information and getting too much psychic stimulation in times where it wasn't really appropriate. You know, sometimes I would realise I was having a little chat away, you know, to a guide or to someone else, and I would be like, oh, you know, this isn't appropriate right now, I'm trying to work or I'm trying to do something. So keeping that balance is really, really important. And it's also important that, you know, if you're dealing with waywards, entities, negative energies, anything like that, you want to tone those psychic abilities down a little bit. We're not closing them. We're not closing them because they're already so open with spiritual awakening, much more open than they ever really could be. But you want to just taper that in a little bit so the boundaries are just a little bit more holding for you. And if you're having real difficulty with that, you can always message me and discuss a session, because sometimes it can be good to undo the programs that are maybe attracting that. But hopefully you're not going through anything like that. Okay, so those are the three most common symptoms, and obviously everything else fits into that. So we've got your heightened emotions, we've got heightened sensitivity, that's your empathy, and could also be physical sensitivity, emotional sensitivity, and your psychic senses extremely heightened and vastly opened, which is always a really interesting ride, if nothing else. Okay, so I'm going to talk about now what the things that you can do to make this easier, to make the process better, to hopefully manoeuvre it without being completely out of control, because that is just not something that you need to do. It's not something that you need to go through. So I'm going to discuss a little bit about that. In the meantime, if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask, I don't know if anyone is, because actually it's not coming up in the box at the moment, but I will have a little look and see. Hopefully it comes up in time. So if you have anything, feel free to send it and I'll do my best to answer. And if there's anything that I missed, then I'll answer it in the comments afterwards, but it might just be the way it's connecting up. Okay, so what can you do to make these signs and symptoms easier? So if your awakening is out of control, if it's extremely difficult, if you're in tears all the time, if you're overwhelmed, if it's extremely difficult or you're finding it hard to manage in your daily life, we don't want to be there. You don't have to be there, okay? And I just want to really reaffirm that. I reaffirm it in all of my articles. You'll see it all over my page. You don't have to go through that in order for you to awaken. These are the programs that we're letting go of as we move into 5D. Life doesn't have to be a struggle. These things don't have to be a challenge. You don't have to, you know, suffer to grow spiritually. These are all old programs that we're getting rid of. So if you're finding that your awakening is that at the moment, these are probably some beliefs and programs that your system's trying to let go of, and that's why they feel so real and so true in your life, and they probably are true in your life right now. We're letting go of those, so please know that it doesn't have to be that way. So I always say to everyone that although there are certain things that we really enjoy and certain things that are usually encouraged as part of awakening, a lot of these things are actually do more harm than good, okay? And I have learned this through personal experience, because I can remember, you know, freaking out, feeling like I was going to leave my body, feeling like I couldn't handle the emotions, and my body was in absolute agonising pain. My back and my spine was all cracking as these realignments were coming, and I couldn't really focus. Sometimes it was hard to, I had so much brain fog, it was hard to actually make sense of things. Couldn't be around people because I was too sensitive. Oh, it was a tea party, let me tell you. But I don't want that for you, and it, like I say, it doesn't have to be that way. But the challenge I had was that most of the guidance and advice that is available out there told me to do things that actually made it worse. So you know how I'm talking about your emotions being heightened, your sensitivity being heightened, your psychic senses being heightened? These things are all catalysed by a big influx of energy that comes into your space. So at the time that you are destined to awaken, which you chose before you come here, I can hear everyone almost groaning with the thought, surely I didn't plan this. Yeah, we all planned it. We didn't plan for it to be this hard because we didn't know until we got down here, but we all planned it. So at a very specific time, all that influx of energy comes into your space, and it's the very high vibrational, powerful energy that, you know, pushes all this energy up the spine, so up the kundalini, through all the chakras, hits all the blocks, brings up all the issues, opens the psychic senses so that you know the doors are wide open and you're probably seeing, experiencing, feeling things that maybe even are a little unnerving because you're not used to it. So we're wide open. So what we really need to do is, because we've been open to a level that is actually unnaturally open and heightened and charged, we need to ground some of that energy. Because we only get these really difficult symptoms when we don't actually have the density in the physical to anchor that energy in, to give it something to grip to and something to balance it out. So the challenge comes that when you're too high and ungrounded like that, not only are your symptoms really, really difficult and really hard, but you're slipping into that space where your brain can't catch up. So that's when we get into space where you're like, I'm completely confused. I'm totally overwhelmed. I have no idea why this is happening. I have no idea what direction to go. I'm stuck. That's when you get into that space, because your conscious mind hasn't had a chance to catch up. Not only that, it doesn't know how to rationalise all these peculiar changes and all this energy. It physically doesn't know how to rationalise it. And what you need to do is give your body and mind a chance to catch up. And when I did that, that's when everything changed. That's when I found my life purpose. I got back on track. My awakening was in alignment. It wasn't scary or out of control or crazy. It was like, I can do this. This is actually really exciting and it's special, and my intuition's coming back and everything was pushing me forward. The blocks were gone. okay? So you want to really ground that energy so that your awakening is a really positive experience. The best way to do that is to avoid some of these things that I'm kind of talking about that make things worse, okay? So if you haven't already got the free course, the free grounding course, hop onto the site www.spiritualawakeningsigns.com and you'll see there's a little banner right along the top. It's on almost every page because I really believe it is one of the most important things that you can learn. It's a five-day course, just little snippets every day to keep you in alignment and reduce those symptoms. But what that'll do is it's going to teach you all about grounding, what to do and what not to do. Because what I've found with awakening is that we're so charged that even though there's a few things you can do to ground your energy back in, there's nothing you can do that works as effectively as staying away from things that charge you too much. There's nothing you can do that will ground you better or make you feel better than a little bit of abstinence from things that are supercharging you. That doesn't mean I'm saying never. So I'm not saying never for crystals. I love crystals and I use crystals in my life. I like having them around my workspace. And things like that can be really enjoyable, incense. But also things like that, if you're in a really delicate, vulnerable state, they can kind of tip you over the edge into a space where you don't know what to do and your energy's just swirling around, your symptoms are out of control, and it makes things 100 times harder. So please look at avoiding, if you're in a really difficult situation, look at avoiding some spiritual things like crystals, oils, incense, sage, things like that until you feel a bit better. So you need to test it out, okay? And I never say to people to do this stuff without testing it. Always follow your intuition, always follow your heart. But I know, because I've stumbled so many times and from working with my clients, that 9 times out of 10, everything can be changed. Your awakening really can be transformed into something much more beneficial and compatible with your life if you just stay away from some of those things for just even a week to give your energies to settle, your brain time to catch up. It tends to make a really big difference. Okay, let's see. Let's see if there's any questions. Let me have a look. Okay, Laurie. What is a good first step to help with spiritual awakening? I believe wholeheartedly about all of this, but I don't feel as if I'm as far along as I think I should or would like to be at my age. Okay, that's a common fear. Okay, a lot of people feel that they're not as far along on the awakening path. And I get a lot of people asking me, how can I ascend faster? How can I move through this better? How can I get to the end? Kind of thing. Okay. And I want to comfort you in letting you know that there is nowhere you're meant to be that you're not already at. Okay, so where you're at right now is perfect. And I know that's said with a groan because I never liked hearing that either. But the truth is that even when you feel like you're struggling, that you're not doing well, that you're not far enough along the line, these are all old belief systems that are coming up to be healed. So this sense of not really being as far along as you should be, have a look, Laurie, and see where else that exists in your life, and have a look and see if that's maybe a little issue that is coming up to the surface to be healed, because that could apply to a lot of different things as well. And what I want to let you know as well is awakening is quite this is a good analogy. It doesn't go like that, like a chart. It goes like this the whole way, and you eventually make it to the top, but it's like really crazy jumbled on the way. And it's not as structured as a lot of books and articles will make out. It doesn't tend to go one step, then next step, nice clean cut lines, you know, with no crying and no meltdowns in between. It takes time to move through these stages, and sometimes the stages blur with a little one back here, and that one blurs with a little one over here. And it's kind of all just kind of melding its way forward, and you are moving forward. But I'd be interested to know, like, what is it that you feel you're not able to move past? Is there a reason in particular that you don't feel you've moved forward? And if you want to pop that in the comments, I'm more than happy to answer that. But as for a good first step, I would definitely say get grounding in place. I'll be saying that to the day I die. Get grounding in place. That is the one thing that will make your awakening so much easier. And I know that you'll be so thankful when you really nail that. But like I said before, it's not about just traditional grounding that you'll read about on the internet. A lot of those things have the opposite effect and charge you further and can make it worse. And then when you're in that space, it's really hard to get out of it. It really, really is. So it's easier, I always say prevention's better than cure. So sometimes a little abstinence from those supercharging things is much better than delving right in and feeling really awful and being too empathic, and too psychic, and too all these other things that are uncomfortable. It's easier just to have a little breakaway than dive in. Okay, let's see. Now, I don't know if this just hasn't refreshed, but if you've got anything else you want to ask Laurie or anyone else, I'm going to be here for a few minutes. So if you have a question, no matter what it is to do with spiritual awakening, I am more than happy to answer it and to give you some comfort, even if it's just a feeling that you have as you're going through awakening. Because a lot of things like feeling alone, that's a really common one. And we've got different fears and concerns as we're coming along that awakening path, so please feel free to ask. But I'm going to just be here for a few minutes to answer any questions, and then we'll be finishing up. So let me see, I'm just going to refresh this to make sure I haven't missed anything. Let's see. Okay, nothing at the moment. But I'm just going to give you guys a few minutes, and I really mean it. There are no silly questions whatsoever about awakening. And remember that this is a private group, it's a private space, and no one else can see what you're asking or what you're putting as a question. It's only the people in the group that can see this. So I've got you, you're totally private here. Okay, so Laurie says, thanks Kelly, I'll check out your website for the grounding programme you have. That's perfect, that's definitely what I would say would be a good thing. Oh, hi Rashawn, I didn't know you were here, darling. Good to know you're here. I'll give us a wee minute or two just to see if anyone else wants to ask anything. I just want to make sure you've got the opportunity to ask if there's something on your mind, or there's something you're unsure about, or even something that you disagree with, it, you know, because I can explain it a wee bit more. But I'll give you a little bit of a minute. And in the meantime, just please don't forget about that free course, because a lot of work went into it. It's entirely free, it's a 5-day course, it's all the do's and don'ts, it's my journey a bit deeper. There's questions and answers where you can contact me, you can message me and ask me some questions. I'm more than happy to help. I just want to be here to be a really good support for you guys. And like I said, I will be here for hopefully once a week. I've said that the last few weeks, and unfortunately it hasn't worked out. I've been really busy, but I want to be here and available for you guys so that you know that you've got someone to lean on, you've got a resource here, and you're not alone as you're on this awakening journey. So please know that I'm going to be here as often as I can. And if there's topics that you would like to see covered, let me know, and I'll do my best to cover that for you, to do with spiritual awakening, because I'm sure everyone's got loads of different things they would like to know about. Right, let's see. I think that's us. If there's anything else anyone has, if you're watching the video and it's not live, pop it in the comments. As I say, I'm happy to help, and don't ever feel that you're fretting and worried or anxious about something to do with awakening. Just ask. And I'm happy to help and get that free course so that you're getting started on that route back to normal life. It's never normal after this, but kind of a normal life. And thanks so much to everyone who has joined the video. Thanks everyone who will catch it later on. I really enjoy spending this time with you guys, and hopefully I'll be live again next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.